Good evening, sir. Hi, Chantel.
Good evening.
How are you?
I'm good. The guys must have taken the time off, sir, because I think you're having a birthday party, so you're not coming.
We're having a class, but we're having the class, but we're not having a full class.
Okay, sir. So what is it that you did for your birthday now? Work? Oh my God.
Chantel will tell you all I do is work.
Okay.
I work a lot. In America, that's all they do, work. Oh my God, I'm crazy. Seriously, I'm crazy, right?
Yes, so, because I'm like thinking, you sir going to say, let us have a champagne break or something.
Listen, it's my birthday and I love to do nothing more than teach.
Oh
and
my God.
Talk and development. So yes, it's a treat to do this on my birthday, probably.
Okay. I understand.
But I will not be having a full class because I have some friends. I have some friends here, and some friends who are going to be celebrating my birthday with me. So it would be remiss of me to be here teaching while they are here, unless they're going to join the class.
I don't think that's the reason why they are there. So
no, they want to drink.
Something. You can take some time off. Okay.
I'm just kidding. Yeah,
you have permission from me.
Okay. All right. You mean you guys want the time off?
No. Honestly, let me tell you something, sir.
Yes.
Yeah. Let me tell you, I've made my assessment and I see that you love to teach. You love to teach. God. You don't even know what time class starts. Anyway.
You know what? You have figured me out. Yes. Yes, I am passionate about my students, about the subject, about the goals I'm going. You could have never asked for a more passionate professor or lecturer. I am a guru on the subject that I'm teaching. So yes.
We appreciate it, sir. We appreciate it, even though many of us work, and so yes. We have workload, and your workload is very heavy, I must say. So that's a birthday gift for you.
It is very too heavy. It is too heavy. It is too heavy. But the head of the department said to me, "Ronaldo, you need to get." My friends are all concerned. They think I work too hard and I need help. They said that no, they think, and yes, I do work hard. I really do. But I'm trying the thing is, when you have a particular goal, my goal is super normal. I have a goal like Jeff Bezos. You know Jeff Bezos?
Say that again?
You know Jeff Bezos?
No, I don't.
My goal is to accomplish what Jeff Bezos accomplished. Jeff Bezos owns Amazon.
Oh my God. Okay.
And Jeff Bezos started Amazon in about 1996 or something like that. And when he started it in a garage, and people thought he was crazy. Mm-hmm. Okay, but he became the richest man in the world, the guy who owns Amazon. Yes.
So that's your goal, to be in line with the richest man in the world?
Indeed. Well, probably not. I mean, no, to be honest, it was never my goal to go to the University of Pennsylvania. I didn't. Mm-hmm. It was never my goal, but I ended up going to UPenn, which is, UPenn is one of the top 6 schools in the US, one of the top 10 schools in the world. It was never my plan to do that. It was never my plan. It happened that way. Okay. So, I mean, God keeps taking me places that I don't plan. So, and I am doing things that can land me there. So, yes, it may land me there. So, I am not saying that that's where my plan was, but I don't know. God seemed to be taking me places where I have never planned to. My life is completely not what I planned it. And I'm giving God thanks for the experiences I've had. But, but to be honest, when I was a little boy at 17 years old, that's what he told me. And I said, ludicrous, but it's happening. Okay, so, what can I do? I just have to just follow God, wherever he takes me.
Well, you know something, sir. I'm a Christian woman, and I really love to go where God is leading as well. So, because of the age I'm at right now, whenever he's leading you there, just carry me, all right?
You have to make sacrifices. It's not easy. Okay, but sure. Yes.
Okay.
Sure. If you are, we'll talk about it. I didn't get to talk to you guys. Did you guys sign the petitioners yet? Did you sign the petitioners yet?
Sir, sir, I don't even know how to sign the petition. I keep looking at that thing. I don't know what to do.
You just need to go on there and read it, and then it says to sign, put your name in on the right. I'll share my screen and show you guys how to do it. I'll talk about it a little bit.
Okay, sir. All right, so others are here now.
Everybody is in the class?
Not everybody. Not everybody.
Okay.
Maxine apologized for that she won't be coming to class today because of her internet issues. So she might not join class today. She wants to apologize.
Who is that?
Maxine.
She's not coming to the class today?
Yeah, because she has internet issues.
Internet?
So she's sent in the group that she might not be able to come to class today because she has internet issues.
But we're not really having class today. We're gonna finish. I'm gonna do like usually I'm not sure how long I'm gonna be, but my intention is not to be long.
Yes, sir.
So if she comes to class, by the time she comes to the class, we might not be here. All right, I'm about to begin right now. So I have a lecture prepared for you, but we'll finish it next week. But I'm going to actually try and start it a little bit for you guys. And I'll email it to you guys as well. It's PowerPoint. I didn't put it in PowerPoint, but it's in Word. But some of what I do is being published. So I don't want you guys to share the stuff I sent you guys. It's only for you guys. You can probably use, if you're going to use it in your own work, you have to ask permission or give me credit or source me. If you're going to use my words, fine, use it, but source me. Say you got it from the professor. But because some of it is being published, it's being considered for publication. But I'm going to begin the class about now. Let me do the slideshow from beginning. There we go. Let me go to my Zoom. Oh, there's only 6 persons in the class. That's not a full class. I thought we had more than 6. Hold on, let me see. I'm gonna I need to bring this up real quickly. Bring this. Hold on, I'm bringing up a document. Give me a second. Okay, guys, welcome to Caribbean Thought. I'm not having a long class today. It's my birthday, and I am not going to be teaching class in my condition. I have been celebrating my birthdays. So how are you guys? To be honest, I have a really good class for you guys. I really do. Let me share my screen with you. I'm going to share my screen with you today because I did something. I'm a thinker. So I'm always thinking about how to improve on myself. I'm always thinking about how to improve. It says, I'm always thinking about how to improve. But today, I wanted to talk about Caribbean thought. I wanted to do a presentation towards developing a Caribbean. It's Caribbean Thought 2200 lecture presentation towards developing a Caribbean Thought academic journal. Notice there is a towards developing an academic thought journal. That is the goal. That's the plan, my goal, my drive is to get you guys to be thinkers and writers and contributors to academia. My drive is that JTS and those people who graduate from JTS will develop an active, burgeoning core group of writers and publishers and so on and so forth who are actively contributing to academia and to thought. That, okay? My plan, my drive, my goal, that is what I'm hoping for when you guys leave here. Or what? Okay. But part of it also is to develop a journal. Sage Journal has asked me to develop a proposal to have an academic journal. An academic journal. And my proposal is to develop a Caribbean Thought academic journal of young academics like yourselves. So that's the plan, to develop. So of course, so I have the Caribbean Thought towards developing a Caribbean Thought academic journal, where usually academic journals have editors, and then you have various contributors where your papers, your essays will be part of the journal, and we want it to be a yearly journal. So the summer semester and the summer and semester 2 of Caribbean Thought, your papers, your work will be featured in the proposal of the academic journal for 2023, and we will debut the academic journal this year. I hope my goal and my plan is that the journal will be out by the end of this year, featuring the best papers, the best works. So hopefully all of you will make it to the journal, if not at least most of you. But so that is what we want to achieve. When we're finished, you guys will be in a position to. That is the goal of the class, and I spoke about the outcome of the class, the learning outcome of the class. So I have the present. So it is Caribbean Thought 2200. The level we talk about, what level is the course? The 2200 level course, and the goal is towards developing a Caribbean. Notice the active part of this. The active part of the course towards developing a Caribbean Thought academic journal. Now, and the information the information provided is a summary of the important thinkers that we will reference in the course and who has made significant contributions to Caribbean thought. So what I did between yesterday and the day before yesterday, I produced a list of some Caribbean thinkers and their influences in chronological order. Well, not necessarily to the best. It's not completely in chronological order, but it's at least 85% in chronological order. Okay, 70%. But I produced a list which I'm going to send to you guys. You guys are going to enjoy this. It's a list of Caribbean thinkers and their influences in chronological order. And part of what I'm going to ask you to do, not in this class, not in next class, but later on, I'm going to ask each of you to do is to identify a particular thinker of the list that I present. Of the list, I'm going to send you guys the list. identify a particular thinker that resonates with you or that you are intrigued about, they don't know anything about, that you would like to do a research on. Okay, you want to do I would like each of you to pick one of the person, one of the contributors, one of the list that I'm going to present to you throughout the class. I mean, this class and next class. Identify a contributor and do a research or an essay, or it could be your research paper, it could be your group paper, but do an essay or an interact with that particular person. That might be very important for you. So when we talk about the timeline, the first one is so now I wanted us to talk about it. We're talking about developing a timeline or important contributors. One is we normally begin with Arawaks to Africans, which really surveys the 1500s to the 1800s, which is a very important part of Caribbean history. And it is the 1500s, and the book surveys the 1500s to the 1800s. And it's quite interesting that the book is entitled Arawaks to Africans. But by the way, I had one of the best classes I've ever had in my life. I had a class yesterday I did a Caribbean theology class. A couple of students were there, not a lot, about 2 or 3. And then one remained. It was powerful. We talked about the Haitian situation. He will be at class next week, Monday. He's a student at JTS, Williams Leandre. And we went deep into Caribbean theology, introduction to Caribbean theology. So when we do introduction to theology in this class, I'm going to probably present a little bit of that video. It was quite powerful, and we talked about the Good Samaritan and the importance to help our brothers and so on and so forth. But Arawaks to Africans looks at the 1500s to the 1800s, and it's quite interesting that Arawaks to Africans does not talk about any connections that West Indian or the Africans or that the West Indians have with the Taino people. This period represents the historical transition in the Caribbean from the indigenous Arawak population to the arrival and the enslavement of Africans during European colonization. Now, you guys are skeptics. You guys are critical thinkers. So when you read this book, I expect you guys to read this book if you haven't read it yet. Read it with scrutiny. The book looks at the 1500s to the 1800s. And the book summarizes that period as the historical transition in the Caribbean from the indigenous Arawak population to the arrival and enslavement of Africans during European colonization. The book does not talk about, and there is really any documentary evidence that speaks to any connection that you or I, as the part of the West Indian man, have with that of the Arawaks or the Taino people. It is as if the Arawaks disappeared. And I say to you guys, when Columbus came to the New World, when Columbus came to the Americas, when he came to the Caribbean, there were other people here. There were other peoples. We know that. We know that. Arawaks, the Taino people. They were in Haiti. They were in Jamaica. Yes, they were here. When Christopher Columbus came to the Caribbean, he said he was coming to Christianize, to spread the gospel amongst a set of people that were uncivilized. But no, it wasn't that. It was to bring, it was an exploration to find gold. They were looking for gold. Yet they were said to be people, the Europeans, they were said to be representing the church. They were traveling, looking for gold and to spread Christianity. You notice how they're seeking for wealth is not dissociated from their spreading of religion. Anyways, whatever the case might be, they went looking for gold, but they also said that they went to spread religion. And when Christopher Columbus, he first came here in 1492. He came upon Haiti and Hispaniola, Santo Domingo, and other countries, and then he left and came back, and there was Jamaica and the other. I saw over. But when he came to the Caribbean, there were other people here. The Taino people. Whatever happened to them? If you talk to the people in Haiti, you talk to people in Jamaica, you talk to the people throughout the Caribbean, except for those in Guyana, because Guyana, they still have some Taino people there, but the other Caribbean islands, it seems that it is as if they all but were wiped out. They disappeared. They disappeared from the islands. And if I were to ask you, whatever happened to the, if I were to ask you whatever happened to the Taino people, yes, go ahead.
Yes, so we are in suspense as to what happened to the Taino people. What happened to them, sir? Because all along I'm of the knowledge that they were murdered, they were raped, some drowned when they went underwater, because I was told that the Europeans had the men underwater searching for pearl and things like that, and they spent such long time underwater and drowned. So is it that something else may have happened to them that we are not aware of?
Well, we talk about documenting and documenting history and the way in which history is documented. And part of Caribbean theology is to reclaim identity. We talk about Israel. Israel became a nation again in 1948 or 1947. There was no Israel before 1947. And after the collapse of the Jewish of Jerusalem, after the Romans had wiped them out and so on, there was no Jews. There was no Jewish state. But yet they kept their traditions and their culture and their heritage. That's why we talk about what is the importance of keeping keeping your heritage and your identity. Why is it important for us? It is important because it also helps to protect property. Israel was able to make claim to Jerusalem and to go, and in 1947 went back to Jerusalem and became a nation again. But part of the problem with it might be conspiracy theory, but what I'm saying to you is that there is not much. Who is writing history now? And now Black people are writing history. Black people are writing their own history. But now they're saying that it's part of critical race theory. And what are they doing with critical race theory? They are now banning books in the Americas that is within critical race theory, because people are afraid of the truth. The truth hurts. People. If you can make a claim, if the Africans who are here can make claim to their urban Indian heritage, then that's a problem. A legal claim. It means that they existed here before. And the Africans, that means we did not have to arrange any independence. We could have taken back our country. Because guess what? There is some lineage or some connections. There are some connections that African American, West Indian people have to the original natives that were here. And if there are connections to the original natives, that then there means that they can claim restitution and reclaim the land. And all the profits and the earnings and all the earnings and the profit that had been divorced from them, they can make legal claim to it. But anyways, what we're learning is that that is what the Urban Indian Heritage Society, they're doing a research, and they have done research around Jamaica. They have done research around Haiti. There's new research around heritage, where they are learning that many Black people or urban people who we think have no connections to the original or to the natives, to the Taino people or to the American Indians, the original people that were here, they actually have connections to those people. Now, if it is true that that is so, of course, I'm saying to you that the way in which history was written, who wrote the history? Who is writing the history? Who is writing the history? And now we are learning of people that existed way before that have some connections, and we're learning, say, for example, and it's okay, let us reason this point. Let us use logic. And you hear, if you watch C.L.R. James in the film, he talks about logic, the way in which he argues the point. But let's use logic to reason this point. If Christopher Columbus, representing the name of God, came to the Caribbean, representing God and to Christianize a set of people who they claim were uncivilized, being ethnocentric. And by the way, that is ethnocentrism. When you define another people as being uncivilized and as ungodly, you are being ethnocentric. You're using your own judgment, your own value judgment to make a value judgment again about somebody. But anyways, right? Christopher Columbus came to the Caribbean to Christianize, but of course to find gold. According to the books, he never laid foot on the island. He never touched. Okay, he never came to the island, but his foot soldiers came to the island. He left a group of people here, and eventually other Spaniards came to the Caribbean and settled here, and they worked and they used the group of people here. First of all, they could not communicate with the locals here, and they never had slavery was not in existence in the way we think about it before the 1600s. Before the 1600s, slavery was not elaborate. There is no evidence that Christopher Columbus had had brought Africans to the Caribbean in his voyages to the Caribbean, in the first voyages. There is no evidence of that. There is none. What we know is that the natives that were in the Caribbean, okay, so, and they came in the name of God. If they came in the name of God representing the church, how is it that they committed genocide and kill off a whole set of people? And they could not have died from diseases because they already lived there. And they were said that many of them committed suicide. The Arawaks weren't a set of people that committed suicide. That was not part of their religion and their faith. So there's no way that they could have committed suicide and religion. I'm sorry, a suicide. What we know is that they intermingled with the Europeans that settled there. Some of them fled to the mountains and settled in the mountains there. That is what we know. But what we do not know is that there is no evidence that Christopher Columbus, before the 1600s, brought slaves that were from Africa. Because there was no triangular trade, and there was no trading happening between the Caribbean and Africa at the time, not until the 1600s. Though it stands to reason that there could not have been slaves there who were from Africa. If there were slaves, yes, go ahead.
Sorry, there's two persons saying that they're in the waiting room. They can't enter the class. And who? Oh, Judy. Judy, she can't enter, but she's in the waiting room, and there's another person as well. So I'm not sure if there's a
if they can't, I'm not sure why they're not.
I am in class.
Oh, they're here.
I'm in class. When you use the link that's on the online platform, you go in a waiting area.
Okay, I'll have to update. We'll update that. By the way, I'm making a very important point here. I don't want to miss the point. I don't want to miss it. I'm making a very important point, and I want you to follow the point, follow the logic. There is no reason why. It stands to reason that there is no way that the Christopher Columbus or the Spaniards that settled were from Africa. So if there were a group of people that were here, who were looking for gold and doing small agriculture, and there was no agriculture of the sort. They were looking for gold and surviving off the locals that were there, the natives, and many of them fled to the mountains and to other parts of Jamaica, because Jamaica is one of the larger islands. So by the time the English came here, and just so you know, the Spaniards, when they came to when Columbus and the investors from Spain and the Europeans, the Spanish realized that there was no gold in Jamaica, they left. They were no longer interested in Jamaica and the Caribbean. They were not interested in the Caribbean anymore because they realized that there was no gold. There's no gold here. However, so it was not an important port. Jamaica was not, and I mentioned that in the letter. If you read the letter to the editor, to the Gleaner, and to the article, Jamaica was not an important port. And if you read the book, Neoliberalism, Globalization, Income Inequality, Poverty, and Resistance, I mentioned that Jamaica was not an important port. After they discovered Jamaica had no gold, and the other parts of the Caribbean, and Haiti, and so on. But however, they realized that the land was fertile and rich. But there was if you read the documents, the history, the archive, what you will learn is that there was still a group of people here, some Spaniards here. But the reason why the British were able to defeat the Spaniards is because the Spaniards did not protect the Caribbean very well. They were not as interested and invested in the Caribbean. It was not bringing in the returns from the investment from the voyage. Christopher Columbus voyages, he didn't bring back anything substantial. Christopher Columbus voyage was supposed to find gold and supposed to bring back profit. He had promised huge sums of gold and wealth and riches, but they didn't find anything significant but a group of Indians that were there. Now, it was not until after the 1600s, in 1655, so there were some infightings. The Spanish crown couldn't care less what was going on in the West Indies. The Spanish crown, they couldn't care less what was going on in the West Indies. So what happened? Okay, so the Caribbean was up for the taking. And there was some infightings between the local Spanish Caucasians who were mistreating the natives that were there, who were mistreating the natives, the Indians and the other natives there. And so they had to go to and so the church, so there was a religious presence there. There was a Catholic presence there. The church was there. There were Catholic priests that were there. They had a local congregation there, and they ensured that the natives were not that their rights weren't abused. That they ensured they kind of helped to protect and to preserve them. And there was a lot of infighting between the church and the locals. But by the 1600s, the British had invaded Spain, invaded the Caribbean, 1655. And many of the natives fled, and and according to the history book, they freed the slaves, but there was no freeing of any slave. There were locals, the Indians that were there, and if they had slaves, there were Indian slaves who they freed to the mountain, who had fled to the mountains and to other parts, especially for the larger islands. So that by the time the British had defeated Spain in the Americas, when British defeated Spain in the Americas, then by that time, at that time, the sugar was becoming king, and there was a demand for sugar, and they discovered sugar and realized that the best place for sugar was in the Caribbean. And of course, the issue of labor. They needed a willing labor to work the land. And who did they find? They could not, many of the Africans had fled to the land, to the mountains. And so you had to triangular trade, because first of all, they could not enslave and work their own people because of what it required. In order for them to have the kind of mass production, the mass production of the profit from sugar, to supply the demand of sugar, they needed a willing labor, a labor that they could enslave. And they create, and by 1600, they developed the theory of race. There was no idea of race. There was no idea of race. People never thought in racial terms. There was no race before the 1600s. Race is a human conception. People never think in terms of race. The Africans never think in terms of race. So when people talk about the Africans enslaved their own brothers and sisters, the Africans did not enslave their own brothers and sisters because they never think in terms of blackness and whiteness. The thinking was tribal. It was a tribal thinking. Talk about African thinking is tribal thinking. Just as though, and there was an active, just as though Europe, there was dominance and fierce competition between the European countries for dominance. There was also competition between African tribes for dominance. But when you read the books, it is as if with the way in which the books refer to them, they were uncivilized. They never had any sense of competition and they did not give them the dignity of a country with a system that was, and the way we refer to them as tribes. Even the way we refer to African tribes, but they didn't think in that. And the word tribes was an English word developed within a Eurocentric ideology and thinking and language that this deposes anything African not good. The religion is not good, so we look down on voodooism, we look down on Obia, we look down on on Rastafarianism. The language is not good, so we don't embrace the dialect and the Creole. Okay, and we have a system. Our system is based on your ability to speak the English language and to speak like the Queen or the King. So we have developed within that psyche that nothing black no good. But anyways, that's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making here is that the Africans, so the British brought, so the British, not the British, the Europeans, when sugar was there was a demand for sugar, a worldwide demand for sugar, the discovery of sugar, of sweetening, and you know, the tea, everybody, they love their tea in England and in Britain, and they love their tea, and they love their spices and they love the tea. Of course, in East India, there were the spices, but of course, in the West Indies, there is no sugar. And so now you have sugar. There was a demand for sugar. Okay, they don't have gold. The Spanish never had any use for the Caribbean and the West Indies, but the British had use for the West Indies. They had the kind of land that they could use to produce sugar, but they needed a willing labor force. That, of course, there was no, by the time they came to the New World, there was no labor. They could not enslave the population there because the people, the Arawaks had fled to the mountains and to other parts. But of course, you don't find this conversation is conspiracy theory or from a kind of logic, what they would say would be forced logic. But I'm saying to you that this is the kind of critical thinking that exists today and research, that there is no reason. When you read the history, you cannot find any when you do your lineage, you go to ancestry.com or you go on. There is no connection with the Arawaks, but yet still, okay? And there is no plausible reason that anyone can offer that would suggest why we don't have any, why would anyone would argue that the Arawaks or the Tainos just disappeared. There is no reason why Christopher Columbus did not admit to committing genocide. He did not. And he said, and they came in the name of God to spread Christianity. So there is no reason why we would subscribe to an argument to suggest that the Arawaks or the Taino people were wiped out by Christopher Columbus and the Europeans or the Spanish. The Spanish don't, nowhere in the Spanish history you will find that. But it is as if the conversations and the arguments around this is mute. There is no conversation. Why is that so? Why is that so? And I tell you so, and I will tell you, could it be that let's finish the conversation. We say that the Africans, by the time the British came, the Europeans came, the English came here, or Napoleon in France or whatever, when they defeated the Spanish. It was after that, by the 1600s, you started having the slave trade. Belgium and Portugal and Spain, they finally start getting, they have these slaves coming into the Caribbean. So that the slaves that came to Jamaica and the West Indies from various parts of Africa, many of them came. And when they came, the plan was for them to work. Of course, now please remember, Europe was said to be a Catholic country. Sorry, Catholic was said to be Catholic. And the kings and the queens were all said to be princes because they served the emperor. The emperor was the Pope. The Pope was in the Dark Ages, in the Middle Ages. The Pope was the emperor and represented God. And all the kings of Europe served the emperor, which was the Pope. So they were regarded as princes. And so there was a high regard for God and civility. And they came in the name of God, and there was always the priest that the priest that represented the Catholic Church, that went on voyages and that accompanied the merchants and the sailors and so on and so forth, to ensure that standards are kept. So when the priests, when they were about to embark on slavery, the slave trade, what they did first was to redefine the Africans. They said, okay, where are we going to find slaves? Okay, where are we going to find labor? They needed a willing labor, a labor that could necessitate mass production. And they found a willing labor, but they first had to justify to their people why they could enslave a whole set of people and treat them the way they did, treat them as property. Treated them as property. They were seen as property. They first redefine. When you study control and power, you redefine people as something outside of themselves, and external. The slaves never had a chance. The Africans never had a chance to determine and to define themselves. They were seen as devilish. They never had no family, no sense of civility. They weren't dignified. They never had any religion or any proper tongue. And today, if you don't speak English, then that's not a language. That is why you had Louise Bennett, who tried to put to the forefront the dialect, and she included it without apology in her presentations and her artistry. And people like Bob Marley and the Rastafari movement, that many, and we're going to talk about that later when we think about Christian theology, Caribbean theology. I mentioned that yesterday in the Caribbean theology class that I teach. But I am using logic here on reason, and philosophizing here. They had to in order to embark on to enslave a whole set of people, the merchants and the dominant class, the status quo, in order to justify it, they had to first come up with an argument. They had to, oh, these people are savages. They started putting people in race, Black race and Aryan race and so on and so forth race. And say, oh, these people are second, they're like monkeys or apes. They're second, they're property, they're not real people, they're devilish and so on and so forth. Justifying now why they would bring them from Africa in the way that they did in the Middle Passage. Bring them in order to embark on sugar production. They could not, if they could have used, by the time the British arrived to the Caribbean, the New World, had defeated the Spanish and so on, and sugar had come here, and if they could have utilized the locals, the Taino people that exist, and the Red Indians in America that existed here before, the Indians that were here before, they would have, but they could not, because they were too familiar with the land and they had fled to the mountains. So they bought slaves, and some of the slaves escaped and intermingled with some of the Africans, some of the Indians and the Taino people in the mountains. But when you study history, when you study Arawaks to Africans, the Arawaks have died out, and now all you have is Africans. And the Africans and the people in the West Indies today when you study their history and their lineage, there is no Arawaks. It is as so therefore, when we think about Haiti, Haiti got independence in 1804. But what is unique about Haiti? Haiti took their independence, unlike any other black country, unlike any other country in this Western hemisphere and in this modern world. What is unique about Haiti is that Haiti is the first black country that defeated a European, a sophisticated, advanced European country. Napoleon and the French were seen as one of the most sophisticated, had the most sophisticated armies in the world. And here are the Haitians, Toussaint Louverture and the Haitians who were from Africa. Christopher Columbus landed on Santo Domingo, in San Domingue in 1492. And you're telling me by 1804, there was a revolution that led to the independence. By 1804, I'm telling you that the Africans and the enslaved people in Haiti, they must have been very sophisticated. They must have come from a particular African tribe that involved the most intellectual, the warriors and princes and chieftains. Because of course, they got the best and the brightest from Africa. And they also got help from people in the mountains. And of course, Dottie Bookman, who was from Gambia, from Africa, who went from Africa to Jamaica and escaped from Jamaica and went to Haiti. And he was a voodoo priest. He went from Africa to part of the slave trade to Jamaica, and then from Jamaica to Haiti. And he was very instrumental, I understand, in helping all of us, in the Haitians or the Toussaint and the Africans and the Indians and so on, the locals who were enslaved, to defeating Oliver, to defeat Napoleon. So there must have been some highly intelligent individuals from Haiti. But outside of that, the Africans, when you look at history, there is no documentary evidence. It is as if the Africans you'll find them that in Guyana, Guyana you'll find them. Suriname in Belize, but in part of the West Indies, in Jamaica, Trinidad, probably Trinidad and Tobago, Bahamas, and in much of the Caribbean and Haiti, you don't find the Arawakan connection there. Why is that so? And I'm saying to you, could it be from strategy? Because you do not. Why is that so? And I say to you, could it be that, but if you study history, you look at what's going on with Israel. There is no reason why. So Columbus does not admit to killing off the Arawaks. So why would people write in history? Why would we readily and easily believe that the Arawaks had all but disappeared? Why would we easily believe that? And why would that be documented? Why would we want to write that in history? Unless to preserve theft and to protect theft. I talk about theft. To preserve theft, to preserve your ill-gotten gain, to prevent any claim against what you have stolen, to protect your claim against what you have stolen. We talk about the Israelis and the Jews, and how they were able to preserve, how they preserve their tongue, they preserve their language, they preserve their culture, and they preserve their heritage. And thousands of years later, they were able to go back and reclaim Israel or part of Jerusalem as part of their own. And now they live there and they occupy there as a nation state again. And I say to you that that's part of the problem. Could that be part of the problem? Where it's easy for us to, okay, first of all, if the Africans, the people, Black people from the West Indies, or who are predominantly of African descent, can't go back to Africa to claim anything, because first of all, Africa was dominated by Europe as well, and outside of that, Africans don't readily claim West Indies people as Africans, unless you're from Jamaica going to Egypt. To Ethiopia. So Arawak to Africans. So when you read Arawaks to Africans, be skeptical of the history that they provide, because it is written at a time that does not recognize the significance of the Taino people and their preeminence and their presence on the island beyond the 1400. It is as if they never existed. And all we have are Black people. So I say to you, the problem is if Africans, or if the formerly enslaved people who are now independent can point to any lineage to the native people of this land, then they're independent. Then they don't need to claim to arrange any independence. That means their independence is not justified. In other words, what they need is restitution from Europe, from Europe. Because their people, their heritage, it was their land in the first place to begin with. It was our land, or we bear some connections to the people who were of this land, who owned this land. So when the Jamaican got independence, there is no independence because, first of all, it wasn't our land in the first place, because we are Africans. We never came. Okay, there were other people who lived there before us. We came here. Now we talk about Haiti. Haiti was the first African country to fight and got independence. They never got in. They took their independence. They never got independent. In Jamaica, we got independence, but in Haiti, they took their independence. And so, as a result, because they fight for their independence and they took it, France said, "Well, listen, it was not your land. We brought you there from Africa. Okay, it was our land that we got after defeating the Spanish. So it's our land, and you stole it from us. So you need to give us some money. Okay, you need to pay us 90 billion, or I don't remember, some billions of dollars." In 1804, no country recognized Haiti as independent. They said you have to give us billions of dollars in order for us to recognize your independence. Billions of dollars in order for us to recognize your independence. But then when you think about it, so the history book is, but if the Haitians can prove that they have connections to the original people that were there, then guess what? Then they don't owe the French any money. They own first of all, it wasn't theirs in the first place because they had already owned it. They had already owned it because they have connections with the original people that existed in Haiti. And what has happened is a strategy of hiding history, concealing history, which was always the case. If you study history, you notice Black history has always been a problem with Black history. And if it is any, and if the history comes from, if say for example, any discoveries and inventions that is originally, that is of anything that is African or black or whatever, is usually hidden or destroyed. Why is that so? But whatever the case might be, but any connections to the original is all but wiped out. In fact, we don't have any evidence. All we have is what people have said, what the same people that went and conquered the land have written to preserve their ill-gotten gain. And I say that's why when we talk about post-colonialism or critical race theory, they want to ban critical race theory because critical race theory is part of critical thinking. We are revisiting history and we are rethinking what was originally thought and what we had thought, because when you start to study history, then you realize that the interpretation that is provided is lopsided. And that is why you read Kant, where he says that history is a result of the varieties of human nature and circumstances. The varieties of human nature when people want to privilege themselves, or depending on what is happening of the day, they will determine the particular perspective on history. But when you look at Arawaks to Africans starts from the 1500s to the 1800s, and it's the period, it represents the historical transition in the Caribbean from the indigenous Arawak population to the arrival and the enslavement of Africans during European colonization. The Arawak indigenous people were the original inhabitants of the Caribbean islands before the arrival of Europeans. With the establishment of European colonies, including the Spanish, English, French, and Dutch. And there's also African slaves. They said, now listen to it, it says African slaves were brought to the region to work on plantation, leading to significant demographic and cultural changes. Listen, the Arawak indigenous people were the original inhabitants of the Caribbean islands before the arrival of Europeans. With the establishment of European colonies, including the Spanish, English, French, and Dutch, African slaves were brought to the region. Okay, fine. So they were brought to the region, but what happened to the indigenous people? What happened to them? And those who were brought, what happened to them? What connections do they have with those who were there? And were they all, and then now people are questioning, were they all the slaves? Did they bring all the slaves from Africa? From Africa? Or a large portion of them still remained here on the island, who they worked and who they intermingled and with the other races, interracial connections, and so on. By the way, when you look at the influences of Arawak European colonial powers, African cultural heritage, forced labor systems. So when you look at the 1500s to the 1800s and the book Arawaks to Africans, when you look at the kind of the influences of that particular perspective, it is an influence that speaks to the European colonial powers, African cultural heritage and just so you know, because we talk about Dottie Bookman came to the Caribbean from Africa, and he brought and he left Jamaica and came by 1700s. He's in Haiti, and he started voodooism and was a voodoo priest. And I say, could it be that Dottie Bookman, because he came to Jamaica but didn't fully develop voodoo. He didn't fully develop voodoo because he quickly left Jamaica and escaped Jamaica, and as a freed slave, he escaped Jamaica. He escaped slavery and came to Haiti. So in a sense, I'm thinking that it was not he didn't get to develop the practice of voodoo fully enough. So it was obia. So that same obia that we have in Jamaica, it's the same thing as voodoo, to be honest. When you study voodoo and you study obia, it's the same thing. It's really the worship of ancestral spirits speaking to protections. But of course, when I spoke with Williams yesterday, and what has happened with voodoo is that people have changed voodoo. They have corrupted it. It's become what it is not, like what they have done with any and everything. Okay? Because it is African and not African no good. So they have corrupted it and made it something else. The locals have made it something else, and the people external to it have made it something what it is not. And okay, what is the philosophies and the ideologies of this particular period? And we're talking about European colonialism again, racial hierarchy. It's born within and in the by the way, by the 1600s, that was when you start having race classes based on hierarchies based on race. Racial hierarchy was never, and there was never a discussion about racial hierarchy. Hierarchy was never based on race. It was never based on black and white and so on. There was no racial hierarchy. So when you talk about the Egyptians, it was not a racial thing. It was more a people, a place, a language, a religion, a culture. But societies were never based on race until the 1600s. Now, what I have always said to you that when you study Caribbean thought, which is diverse thinking that have come to shape Caribbean thinking, you have to look at what has influenced the thinking behind Caribbean, because you can't study Caribbean thinking in a vacuum. Because I said to you, Caribbean is part of the Western civilization. Caribbean is part of the New World. Caribbean is part of the Americas. The Americas is considered the New World. We are part of the New World. And because we are part of the New World, what is our part? And then again, we said that the Caribbean is an invention. The Caribbean is an invention. And yes, you will agree that it is an invention. We said earlier that we talked about Christopher Columbus discovering, and we talked about colonies, European colonies. The Caribbean being a European colony. So of course, being colonized means take control. It means to strip away. It means to tear down something and to replace it with something else. It means, okay. So that is, so no, some time ago we talked about when we study society, we talk about when you start to look at Caribbean thinking, you can't look at it at a vacuum. You have to look at it so widely. A person that is very important to this in post-colonial studies. Well, I am saying that they're important. And I'm a student of Cartesian philosophy and phenomenology, which is the study of the mind, Caribbean thought. But here I'm talking about phenomenology. Of course, Descartes was from 1596 to 1650. And René Descartes was a French philosopher. And he was a mathematician and a scientist. But he also developed phenomenology. And phenomenology is very indispensable to psychology and to a philosophy of psychology. And he's considered the father of modern philosophy. And of course, he invented the term cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. And of course, some of Descartes' major influences were the ancient Greek philosophy, mathematics, and of course, the scientific revolution. So when you study Descartes, you can understand the importance, how important a figure he is and how he was influenced. Some of his philosophies include rationalism, mind-body dualism, and so this was foundationalism. Of course, he is foundationalism because he was part of Newtonian physics and part of that kind of foundational knowledge, that kind of standard knowledge. So he was a part of a mind-body dualism, the Enlightenment period, leading to knowledge and exploration. Some of his major work involves meditations on first philosophy, which explores the nature of knowledge, the existence of God, and the distinctions between the mind and the body. And he says that you can't know anything. But what was quite powerful about Descartes was when he was trying to understand reality. He was trying to come to the truth. He was trying to, can you know? And if you study philosophy, you will meet Descartes. And Descartes was trying to find out if anybody can know, come to the truth of reality. Can you know anything that for real? You can't know anything for real. Can you discover the reality of anything in its essence? But especially with the problems that we have, because in the period, Descartes is in a period of discovery, and there was much debate about how you can come to the truth of anything. Say, for example, is the world round? Is the world flat? Galileo was prominent at the time, and then the church was seen as the center of the universe, and there was this big debate. All truth is God's truth. There is no truth outside of God's truth, especially outside of the Pope. And of course, the Pope is the dominant, and that was part of privilege. The church was fighting to preserve its dominance, to preserve its centrality, to preserve its authority. And here it is now fighting with a new kind of rationality, a new kind of rationalization, a new kind of thinking that challenges the church as being the center of the universe, that challenges the theology of the church, of the earth being flat or round, that challenges the truth of God. And now today, science has taken the place of the church. Now everybody appeals to science. But before it was science was a little boy was on the block, trying to navigate, trying to compete for truth. But that's where Descartes was. And so, of course, it was an active period about, well, can we know anything? Because people are not challenged. Galileo and his theories about the universe and the earth. And he said, people are now discovering, and of course, there's also the Renaissance and the Reformation, very active period in society. And so he said, I'm going to, and I went through that period in my whole life where I said, I became an atheist. While at the seminary, I did, yes. And then I taught, and I was reading people like Boltzmann and stuff. And then I spoke with my professor, and I said, I'm going to abandon everything. But he abandoned everything that he knows and said, I'm going to start from afresh. I'm going to say nothing exists. Nothing exists. There is nothing that exists. But then to say nothing exists, it still recognizes and acknowledges something exists. It is hard to say nothing exists. The mind cannot start from that and that's what he came to the reality. Descartes came to that, and that Descartes came to that reality. To say that nothing exists still invokes existence because something exists. There is something thinking that something does not exist. And the thing that is thinking that nothing exists, and that is the mind, the thinking mind. So therefore, as much as you want to say nothing exists, there is something that is thinking that nothing exists, and that thing is the mind. And therefore he said, Cognito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. So that he will come to the realization and the conclusion and say, well, all right, fine. Therefore, I don't know if anything exists outside of my own mind. And that's why people come up with I messages. I messages. People can't make you angry. You make yourself angry based on the stimuli and the perspective that your mind and you associate with things. Because one person may react one way to a particular stimuli, but you and another person react another way, which stand to reason that you and people aren't responsible for the feelings that you associate with external stimuli, because you attach certain perspectives and thinking to it. Because based on, remember what Descartes says, I think, therefore I am. Therefore, you don't know anything outside of your own mind. That's where our messages came from. Our messages from a psychological concept that and also a conflict resolution concept or mechanism. That's where it came from. Phenomenology, Descartes. That's where it came from. But this is an important aspect in critical thinking, which also gives rise to critical theory. Although it was quite heavy-handed, it was quite draconian in thinking of the day that it was. But Descartes was quite instrumental in purporting, in stripping away the authority of the mind, in stripping away truth, all truth, stripping away the authority of the church, stripping away this objective truth, objective knowledge, objective truth, in the sense that one must always acknowledge one's subjectivity when one imposes or provides a perspective, even me or even I. And of course, there's one of the persons that and after Descartes, you have Kant. And Kant wrote the book Kant on History, which is a book that I love. And Kant was from 1724 to 1804. 1804, he died in 1804. That was when you had the Haitian Revolution. And the Haitian Revolution, which led to the Haitian independence, was in 1804. And Immanuel Kant, he was a German philosopher who made significant contributions to various fields of philosophy, including ethics, metaphysics, and epistemology. He was German, and Germans have contributed so much. When you start, you never knew what, when you start to study German philosophy, German ideology, you understand how important Germans have been to the development of the world. In discovery and Germans. And he has, in some of his influences, talk about rationalism. And we'll talk about his influences. In other words, what has influenced him? The field of rationalism again, because we're in that area of Renaissance and Reformation and the era of period of rationalism, rational thought, rational theory, empirical theory, using a kind of evidentiary knowledge to arrive at truth, empiricism, Enlightenment philosophy. And of course, some of his philosophies involved in ideologies, transcendental idealism, categorical imperative, and moral philosophy. I'm not going to get into some of these because it's not a philosophy class, but and I don't want to zero in on Kant because these aren't the persons that we are going to be delving into, but they are important to Caribbean, to the development of Caribbean and Caribbean thought. But some of his major works included The Idea for a Universal History with a Cosmopolitan Purpose, which discusses the nature and purpose of human history from a philosophical and not a religious or scientific basis. But yet, philosophy has helped. There's a philosophy of his science. We talk about his philosophy, and it is in this work that he challenged Newtonian physics as being of which in help has as informing the law of thermodynamics, and question whether or not we can take as truth Newtonian physics as gospel, Newtonian physics as law that helps to shape Western civilization, as if it is anything that, without taking it anything outside of what it is. Human understanding and creation of life. An important figure in Caribbean thought is Keith Novella Nelson. It says Keith and Keith, but it's Keith and Novella Nelson. They wrote the book, The Social Origins of Democratic Socialism in Jamaica. The Social Origins of Democratic Socialism in Jamaica, which was published in 1975. And The Social Origins of Democratic is a book, socialism is a book written by, oh, no. Something is wrong with this. I'm sorry, this is not correct. That's not correct. That's why I'm so happy I didn't send you that. That's not correct. That's not correct from that slide. That's not correct. The Social Origins of Democratic Socialism in Jamaica was written by, oh yes, it was written by Nelson and Novella Keith. Nelson and Novella Keith. And it explores the historical and social factors shaping Jamaican society. And actually, the book looks at 1974, that looks at what happened in 1974, following a successful parliamentary election where Michael Manley and his People's National Party took Jamaica onto a self-proclaimed democratic socialist path. Now, democratic socialism failed, according to the book, prior to the subsequent electoral defeat of the PNP in the 1980s. And the book explored whether or not the short-lived experiment has evoked considerable interest among development scholars. Now, Keith and Keith challenged current interpretations of Jamaican events and develop an alternative theoretical model for national populism. The book is quite powerful. It's really quite powerful, without dismissing the negative machinations by the United States, international mismanagement, and a variety of other problems. What Keith and Keith argue is that the events in question speak less of a failure of socialism than of the fragility of a nationalist or national class alliance that coalesced temporarily amidst a crisis around the new politics. Because while incorporating radical impulses from below, as well as socialist policies, the new politics, which is democratic socialism, was rooted in liberal democratic strains. And we talk about liberal theology or Black liberation theology or the liberation movement that had evolved historically in ways that could accommodate these impulses. Now, the Manley Project can be better understood as the management of peripheral capitalism rather than Of course, and many people would disagree with me. Many people will disagree with me. But was more a peripheral capitalism rather than a budding socialism for which there were few supports in the society. Many people thought that Michael Manley was a socialist, and his cronies, but they tried to implement socialism, but it wasn't successful. He was friends with Manley and used the language of the day, but it was a popular argument to appeal to a sentiment and to a people that would probably vote for him, or to maintain power. Is that true? I don't know. That's something for us to discuss. In 1887 to 1940, another important figure in Caribbean thought is Marcus Garvey. And Marcus Garvey was a Jamaican political leader. He was an entrepreneur. He was a Black nationalist who advocated for the empowerment and unity of African descendant people worldwide. And some of his influences include Pan-Africanism. He was influenced by Pan-Africanism. He was influenced by the Black nationalism. He was, well, according to some, he was influenced by Booker T. Washington, and you will see Booker T. Washington. That's why I'm telling you, you cannot, when you study Caribbean thought, you have to also study Pan-Africanism and this American civil rights movement. And Stokely Carmichael grew up a part of his life is in Jamaica. And he was an American activist that helped to start the Black liberation movement here in the US. And who was it? Malcolm X grandmother grew up in Jamaica, was from Jamaica. And you have strong connections between the Caribbean and other countries in the Americas. So, but what has happened is that it is as if it's difficult to find the truth, but now people are finding the truth and people are writing about it. But what are they doing? They are banning books that speak into these issues. I have been very critical of Marcus Garvey. And I'm going to ask you, why have I been critical of Marcus Garvey? Why is your professor critical of Marcus Garvey? And I mean, today we're looking at an outline. So we're not delving into the topic of resistance. One of the topics that we were dealt with, and it is also in the book, I think in neoliberalism, part 2 of the book is on neoliberalism. But in chapter 7 looks at Caribbean Fanonism, which looks at independence and globalization, myth and counter-myth, where I question the independence movement and the efficacy of the resistance movement. And I ask the question, what's the fate of national liberation and post-colonial reconstruction? And what conclusions can we draw from Fanon on the efficacy of a nation's political independence and its ability to reconstruct itself as a sovereign and developed country? More so, when you look at Marcus Garvey is part of the resistance movement. So the question is, how effective is the resistance movement for global justice? How effective is the resistance movement for, I asked the question, has Pan-Africanism or Pan-Africans achieved its goal? In a sense, yes, in terms of equality and unity, but in a sense, no, we have not had the kind of equality and unity. We're still disunity. And then in terms of the economics, Black people are among the poorest in the world today. And where there is a small pockets of wealth, it does not translate in other Black experience. So I write in chapter 9 of the book, the limitations of Black nationalism and Garveyism. And we're going to talk about that in this class. What do I mean by the limitations of Black nationalism? And I'm going to talk about Garvey's fascist ideological roots. So I'm going to say to you, There was some fascism in Garveyism. There was some imperialist, capitalist, Eurocentric ideological predilections in Garveyist methodologies, which seems to, all it does is to support what Trotsky and Trotskyites have always said. That says society is about class and how classes compete. And all that happens is tension between class, where one class will fight another class. And when they finally dominate, they will become dominant, and they'll do the same thing, continue their discrimination. That's all it is. Society is just about that. Society is about racial or class tension, okay, tension between the classes. And there is no justice that's going to have happened, because classes are competing, because we live in a very competitive world where there is no regard for the other in a very competitive world. And all that will happen is that one class will replace the other class, and they will ensure that they will preserve their dominance by putting a system in place that ensures that their position is protected. That is pessimistic. That is hopeless. That is, now, is that true? But I say to you, that is the kind of suspicion that characterize humanity, that has helped to prevent the kind of hope that we are seeking. No, that we are seeking and we're looking for. Now, by the way, one of Garvey's major work is Declaration of the Human Rights. We know he started UNIA. He also started a newspaper, one of the first newspaper. He started one of the first black political parties in the first black political parties. George Padmore was another critical thinker, and he's from 1903 to 1959. So you could tell that he didn't live very long. 1903 to 1959. And George Padmore was a Trinidadian-born Pan-Africanist. Trinidadian-born Pan-Africanist. The next time I do I have 51 slides. This particular presentation has 51 slides, and it is meant to be completed in two classes. And then I have another slide that looks at important terms: Pan-Africanism, nationalism, neoliberalism, socio-political theory, socio-political economy, Caribbean political, communism. So and that's going to be another 51 slides. So we will get a chance to define Pan-Africanism some more. We'll delve into that some more. But he was a Trinidadian-born Pan-Africanist and communist political activist, writer, and organizer. And he was influenced, of course, by the Pan-Africanist movement, Marxism, like your professor, who is influenced by Marxism. And when you think about Marxism, please don't think about it in a very general way. You do your own research about what Marxism really is. You read Karl Marx, Das Kapital, which he has 3 big volumes. You read it yourself. I read it, the entire Karl Marx. When we think about, we talk about Michael Manley, he was not really a socialist or a Marxist. I mean, he embraced or incorporated, and many of these countries embraced Marxist views, but they weren't real Marxists. Because Marxism is not about totalitarianism. Marxism is not about that. Okay? Marxism is not Stalinism. And when you read Karl Marx, Das Kapital, and in Marxism recognized the need for some amount of competition and in society in order for you to achieve what Marxism is trying to achieve. This utopic society of equals. But of course, the problem with Marxism is that there is no room for privilege and position and power. That's the kind of movement that George Padmore. There's no power, there's no privilege. So, of course, George Padmore would be influenced by that political thought. No, okay, because you're coming out of colonialism, a period of control. a period where you are treated as nothing. And Marxism promotes something that is completely different, about equality, a utopian society of inclusive people. And of course, anti-colonial movements, like Frantz Fanon. Of course, Frantz Fanon died in 1955, I believe, in 1955. So I said, these powerful guys all died around the same time. Of course, part of his philosophies and ideologies include internationalism, anti-imperialism, socialist revolution. His major work, Pan-Africanism or Communism, which was in 1956, which explores the relationship between Pan-Africanism and Marxism and argues for their compatibility. Notice, George Padmore wrote a book in 1956, and notice he died in 1959. Frantz Fanon wrote Wretched of the Earth in the 1950 or something like that. And by 1951, he died. But a lot of these guys, in the 1950s, there was the national movement, and you had the Bang Dong Conference. There was a big Bang Dong Conference, a big drive towards nationalism and liberation. And so everybody was writing in the 1950s. So, George Padmore have a book, Frantz Fanon has a book. It's quite interesting. Sailor James, 1901 to 1989. We began to, you guys got a homework to do on Sailor James some time ago. You guys got a homework to do on Sailor James. And you guys were supposed to watch the film, and that's still part of the homework, and watch the film and to interact with some comments that I made about it. And I'm going to raise it again here. But Cyril Lionel Robert James, known as Sailor James, was a Trinidadian Marxist historian, journalist, and historian. He was a journalist and a historian. And I decided to add some of his notable comments, which came from the film. One of his comments, he said that the West Indians are not fully admitted into the Western culture. The West Indians are not fully admitted into the Western culture. Talk about reggae and dancehall and Rasta and Creole. First of all, Sailor James is being hypocritical. Okay, I'm going to say that right now. Sailor James is being hypocritical because, first of all, the West Indians themselves don't accept themselves. They have been so colonized that they themselves, they are so British, they are so European, they themselves don't accept. Okay, we ourselves don't accept or bear any gift or have much value on anything that is Caribbean. But anyways, Sailor James said the West Indies are not fully admitted into the Western culture. When you think about, and even today, and he died in 1989, and he made those statements in about in the 1970s. 1980s, sorry. He made those statements in an interview. But I say to you, look what's going on today. Reggae and dancehall has influenced a lot of artistic and musical culture and musical art forms, such as and also Mento and Kumina, all part of Caribbean. Okay, Mento and Kumina has helped to influence the dancehall, and from that you have from Kumina you have to dancehall and reggae music, and that has influenced that. And from reggae music to rap, a lot of rap and rhythm and blues and music in the US is influenced by Jamaican and Caribbean music. I talk about Mardi Gras, but part of Mardi Gras have a lot of European, the influence from Mardi Gras, have a lot of Haitian influence, but a lot of Haitians went from Haiti to the south, okay. And I said to you, if you look at the people in Southern America, in the southern part of the US, the Southern culture, there and even how they talk, there is, they have a lot of West Indian kind of an East Indian kind of culture. Some of the spices that they use, the food. And now you start to study the history. They said a lot of the slaves that came to the Caribbean, came to the US, didn't come from off the ships. Many of them were runaway that came from the Caribbean. When you start read the Black Transatlantic and start to reread history, when we start, there is a particular quote, we're gonna start we're gonna do an introduction to critical race theory, which is not on the syllabus. It's not on the syllabus for this class, but I've decided to add it to this class. We're gonna do an introduction to critical race theory, and I'm going to introduce to you some new thinking about race and what we are now, what Black scholars are now saying in critical race theory about what was never been said about African history and their resistance and their travels and mobilizations and so on and so forth. And their art forms and their language and their culture. We're going to talk about that a little bit. But one of C.L.R. James's notable statements was that the West Indies are not fully admitted into the Western culture. Reggae and dancehall, Rasta Creole, but we have the opportunity to develop it. He said we have the opportunity, and we have been developing it. But aliens or illegal foreigners and immigrants, they develop it, but are they profiting from the developing of it? Another notable comment to explore is that he said of Castro and the Cuban Revolution, he said, although Fidel and the Cubans aren't Black, the attitude of their revolution is essentially a West Indian revolution, similar to Saint Olivier revolution in 1802 to 1804 in Haiti. He said of Castro again, and he said what? Although Fidel and the Cubans, and you have a homework to do that. What does he mean by that? What is he talking about? And I think I answered it a little bit for you guys. But you guys are supposed to be reflecting on that. Thirdly, he said, Haiti was the wealthiest colony. Actually, he never said that, but it was from I did some more reading on him. I read some more books about him earlier yesterday, a few weeks ago, and I rewatched the film. And based on, and I've come to determination that, and I've come to this determination. Haiti was the wealthiest colony, and he alluded to this. And the slaves that came to the West Indies were of the physique that was, oh, he said this, of fine physique and intelligence. The slaves that came to the West Indies were of fine physique, African slaves. They were of fine physique and intelligence, so that they were able to withstand the Middle Passage, because they had to endure a difficult Middle Passage. The Middle Passage was very difficult for the slaves, but they endured it. So they must have been of fine physique. That's what we talk about. That's what you call inductive and deductive reasoning. That's logical reason. That's how you reason using logic. And so therefore, when I say to you, it can't be true that Africans, that the Arawaks, that the Taino people escaped, it disappeared. It can't be that, and that they had committed genocide, because they came in the name of God and to spread Christianity. There's no evidence that Christopher Columbus admitted to committing genocide and wiping out the Indians and so on and so forth. Okay, so it stands to reason. You see where I'm going. The critical thinking at work here, so on and so forth. But he said Haiti, the slaves that came to the West Indies from Haiti, they were of fine physique and intelligence, so that they were able to withstand the Middle Passage. Not only that, Haitians and West Indians from Africa were very intelligent as they quickly learned the techniques of production in Western cultures. They were intelligent as they quickly learned the techniques of production in Western cultures, which must have meant that African society was organized and not backward as it was originally written. No, I got it. Let me say that again. Are you guys listening? Guys, Haitians, listen to the assumption, to the conclusion. Come from inductive and deductive reasoning, from logic, based on C.L.R. James' study of Haitians. This man, who was, by the way, a Trinidadian, writing about Haiti, he said, Haitians and West Indians from Africa were very intelligent as they quickly learned the techniques of production in Western cultures, which must have meant that African society was organized and not backward as it was originally written. That is critical thinking. When we talk about critical thinking, that's what we're talking about. Thinking from below. Here is a black man who is now writing history. This history is not, the history is no longer being told by the others from the outside. It is being told by us. So that's why I say support black business, support your black brothers and sisters, support the books, support. I said, write your own histories. Study the books yourself. And guess what? Nothing is immune from your study and your reflection. Study the church, study the politics, study the theology, study the sociology, study the psychology. Do not take anything for granted. Haitians and West Indians from Africa were very intelligent as they quickly learned the techniques of production in Western cultures, which must have meant that African society was organized and not, they were a backward society. And when you think about, by the way, and I added this part, When I started, I got an epiphany in terms of, in my thinking. Europeans took the best. That means they must, because they said that, he said, C.L.R. James said they were of fine physique. So I said, Europeans took the best and brightest and strongest slaves then. The best, the brightest and strongest slaves from Africa. Many were princes and warriors, abducted in tribal wars, stemming from the European strategy and deal during the triangular trades. Again, the Europeans took the what? The best and brightest and strongest slaves. And they took them. Please remember that there was an exchange, there was a deal between the African countries. I'm not going to say tribes anymore. The African countries. The African countries and the Europeans, they had a deal. But the problem is the same deal that one European country made with one African country, they made with the other African country. So when one African country thought that the deal was exclusive, where they will get guns and they will then invade and plunder another and wage war with another African country and steal their people, because the Europeans they weren't familiar with the land very well, so they made a deal with an African country, and they made a deal for them to go and plunder and steal steal the people from the other African country. Okay, and when they went to war, so they are fighting a war, they took the best, they took the warriors, the warrior kings and the warrior queens, the warrior princesses. They went into these places and they took the best, because the Europeans only wanted the best. The best people, they didn't want the people who were sick, the people who couldn't traverse the Middle Passage, the triangular trade route. They had to take the best people. So they took the best people, the healthiest. And who were the healthiest people? The warriors. The warriors and the princes and the queens and the nobles in these African lands. The people who ate the most, the fighters. Those were the people. The Europeans took the best and the brightest. Many were princes and warriors, abducted in tribal wars stemming from the European strategy. So yes, so that is why they could have learned so quickly. They learned Western cultures and Western civilization so quickly. They were bright and intelligent, according to C.L.R. James. So that by 1804, they could, and there's something very unique about Haiti. There's something very unique about Haiti. You know what's unique about Haiti? Haiti is the first Black country, not only the first Black country, the first Black country. You don't hear in the modern world, you don't hear of any Black country to get independence, to fight off a European country back in the modern time. Do you know of any Black country today, any African country or Black people that have successfully fight off any white or Caucasian or Europeans or the dominant class or the status quo or post-industrial country or whatever the case, or dominant country? Do you know of any African or Black country today? No, you don't know of any. So some people would argue that Africa, Haiti is being made of an example. They made an example out of Africa. How dare Africa would challenge the white man? But the Haitians were prideful people because they don't believe that that their independence must be given. They believe that their independence must be taken because they like Frantz Fanon. They hold on to what Frantz Fanon said. But of course, they were before Frantz Fanon. The Negro is not anymore. Why is it that only the white man can fight for his freedom and it is allowed? It's civil. It is as if, okay, but the Black man must ceremonially arrange his freedom. That is what is so disgusting about Jamaican independence and our freedoms. It was gifted to us. And I ask you, it was gifted to us. It was granted to us. It was gifted to us. When, okay, as if all men aren't made equal, as if all men aren't made free. If all men, if it takes one other man or woman to grant somebody else another person's freedom and independence through a ceremony involving a paper, it means it is a recognition and an acknowledgement that that other man is God. It means because that other man gives you freedom. Jamaicans boast, and Caribbean countries and West Indian countries boast, oh, we are independent. Why are you independent? You're independent because you are inherently and naturally free, or you are independent because you got it? Why you are free? Are you free because all men are inherently free, or because you got it? That's what Mutabaruka is alluding to when he alludes to it. That is what Eli Kadori alludes to in her nationalism of self-determinism. When we talk about the theory of self-determinism, that's what Eli Kadori is talking about in nationalism, talking about the theory of self, that people having that right to self-determine, to self-govern. So fine, you get independence, but how did you get it? On your own turf, or was it granted? The Haitians fight for it, and you notice there are two countries in the West Indies that got independence. Sorry, they didn't get independence. That took their independence. Do you know what those two countries are? Two countries in the West Indies that got independence. Do you know what those two countries are?
No, sir, I don't know.
There are two countries that got independence. Do you know what those two countries are? Come on, guys. Put your thinking cap on. Two countries got independence. Sorry, two countries in the Caribbean, in the West Indies, took their independence. They didn't get it. They didn't get their independence. And I'm using the word get as against take.
Haiti and Suriname.
Say that?
Haiti and Suriname.
Okay. All right. Okay. Tell me what happened with Suriname, Dane.
I don't remember. It just came back to me. It just came to mind.
But to be honest, I'm not thinking about Suriname. I'm thinking about Cuba.
Okay. Oh, Cuba, right.
Cuba
right.
and Haiti. Nobody think about Cuba. Cuba and Haiti. And Cuba, and do you know which two countries are the poorest in the West Indies today? What two countries are the poorest in the West Indies today? Haiti and Cuba. Haiti and Cuba are the poorest. And Haiti and Cuba are what? They fight for their independence. They didn't get an independence through ceremony. It was a revolution. And today they are the poorest.
Why, sir?
I'm happy you asked me that question. I'm happy you did. I knew you were going to ask me, but okay, but you see how I am thinking here? You see critical thinking at work? You see how when you are writing, I say when you see how you get epiphanies? When you read widely and you delve into the thing, when you are passionate about information, about philosophy, then you start to think deeply about things, then you arrive at, and then you push it to its logical end. That came from thinking and rethinking what was previously thought. Like, wait, hold up. Wait, hold on. Yeah, but you are, wait. Cuba and Haiti are among the poorest. Cuba and Haiti, they fought the former masters for their independence and got it. And they are the poorest.
Well, for Haiti, they actually had to pay back France for the freedom that they obtained. They end up paying for several years. They have been paying back France.
Yeah, they paid it back. Did you watch you watched the interview that I did? Did you went and read the paper? You read the interview and the articles I did?
No, I didn't, but I know that's what I know from ever since.
That is true. Yes. Haiti, when they got independence, for years, their independence and their freedom was not acknowledged. They weren't acknowledged. Their freedom and their independence was not acknowledged by other countries. So they couldn't get loans. It was a strategy by the establishment to make a mockery of their independence. Yes.
The Cuba thing, there was a US embargo against Cuba for years.
That's what has happened. They have they use embargo, they use debt or structural adjustment to keep down countries of the West Indies. Countries that are formed. So you are free, but you're not really free. You go and take your free. If you have a ceremonially arranged freedom, then that's fine. We will accept that. But if you fight for your freedom, if you try to do it like Grenada, you're gonna get what Grenada get. Okay, with Bishop and okay, or you suffer what's going on in Haiti. Haiti and Cuba, the way in which they get their independence, probably that's what has dogged them. Probably that has because right now. Okay. First of all, they had to pay back a debt. They had to pay a debt in order for their freedom to be. And then you must have come on late. If you had listened to what I said earlier, which was part of talking about the UIHS, the misclassification of Indians, and whether or not we have any connections to the Black heritage. Sorry, to the urban Indians. To the Indian heritage where you can now claim, and maybe the Haitians don't owe, because yes, the Haitians had to pay France because the Haitians were from Africa. They brought them there and they fought them and took the land that they stole it from the French. You understand the point I'm making here? They stole it from the French. And so French is saying, you owe us because you took our land. It was not France or French lands.
to begin with. Yes? The French took it from the Spanish. The Spanish took it from the Arawaks. But the Europeans, the Africans, they came here from Africa. And then within 200 years or so, they're already fighting the Europeans, one of the most powerful countries in the world at the time. Napoleon had the most powerful army. And that would have sent a message to the world. An African nation, or African Black people who are taught nothing good to come from Black people. And here, but they are winning. So they use debt or some strategy to hold them down. The debt and when you start to study, and some time ago I read the book Structural Adjustment in the Commonwealth Caribbean, written by Ramesh Ramsawan, who is a professor at the University of the West Indies, Caville. I don't know if he's still there. Beautiful book. Talked about how structural adjustment, what it did was it upended lives and systems, and it transferred decision making from the local to the global, from the global south to the global north. The global, we don't say developing, we don't say third world countries anymore, just so you know. And we say global south and global north. Again, we don't say global, we don't say developing, we don't say third world countries anymore. We say the global south, because third world is derogatory. Third world is part of the narrative of second best or less. Okay. So we are not third world. We're not part of the third world. We're part of the new world, or a part of the new world that is part of the new world. That was part of the old world. So we don't use the word third world anymore. We use the word what again? We use the word, what do we say? Global south.
Sir, how do we determine whether or not we are global south or global north?
I mean, we were global south, you are south of the equator. Countries that are developing, countries that are below, countries that if you're not post-industrial, if you are developing, then you are global south. Okay, so if you're a developing country, or if you're formerly the formerly third world country, they used to call us third world countries, but now we're moving away from derogatory language, or language that discriminates or puts you down. Okay, so now we use the word global south instead of third world, countries of the global south. And in the book Neoliberalism, I make a distinction between the global south and the global north. In other words, post-industrial countries, or the former West, or the former European countries, Germany, the G8 and so on, Germany and so on, the former those countries, as against the post-colonial countries are considered the global south countries. Okay, global south countries. But it is important for us to understand this important point about Haiti. Haiti and Cuba is two examples of countries about how they got independence. Outside of any other Caribbean island, they are the only two Caribbean islands that is among the poorest that is suffering from penetration. In fact, today, Haiti is not a democratic country. They are the first Black country. They are not just the first West Indian country. They are the first Black country in the modern day that successfully fight off the Europeans and won. And that's the problem. And not only that, Haiti has a lot of potential, but we live in a competitive world. The problem with the Caribbean is that the Caribbean can become competitive. The Caribbean can become wealthier than it is. The Caribbean is poised, have a lot of potential, but if the Caribbean become a juggernaut of the world in terms of its economics, then that means it will throw a wrench into what other countries are trying to achieve, because then it will affect other countries' GDP. It will affect other countries well. In other words, if Cuba does well, it's going to affect tourism as against Jamaica. In fact, some countries in the Caribbean like that Cuba is not doing very well, because if Cuba does well, then they're going to rival other countries in the Caribbean tourism. So let's use that in terms of regionally, the Caribbean as a region can't do well when you think about it in a competitive, strategic way, because it's going to affect the America and Canada, and by extension, other countries, the post-industrial countries. That is why NAFTA was, say for example, the North American Free Trade Agreement. The NAFTA upended the Jamaica and the former colonial countries' agreement with Britain, with the banana preferential treatment. They used to have a preferential treatment with banana. But that, and by the way, some of you think, by the way, I am 45 years old today. For those of us who don't know, today I am 45, and I'm not that young. Okay, but I'm still young in a sense, but I'm 45 today. But I remember that in the 90s, when NAFTA became when they invented NAFTA and Bill Clinton, and NAFTA was the death of Jamaica's banana industry and the Caribbean bananas industry. Because they went to they talk about globalization and everybody being fair, and they went to WTO and pressured Cuba to pressured England and the EU to end any preferential treatment that they had with Caribbean countries. And what the argument was that these countries are just coming out of they just got independence and they need time to develop their countries. And so it was a program to help, and that was if England never did anything better, it was this program, the banana preferential treatment. I must hail England for that. If it's not for that, at least that, but it was upended by the NAFTA program because of course the US entered into an economic agreement with Mexico and Canada and themselves, okay, and they started to make banana, all right, and they had to compete with Jamaica bananas that was getting some kind of preferential treatment with, because we were exporting to the Caribbean, was exporting to Europe, but NAFTA wanted to export to Europe. They were okay. So of course, what they did, they pressured the WTO with some dumb flimsy argument. They develop rules, as we talk about the bureaucratic phenomenon. They develop certain rules that they can go around, that they can. They don't go. They use the rules. The rules are developed to suit them to suit them. They can pull for the rules, and okay, so that it can fit their narrative whenever they want to reposition and to reestablish their position. So that upended the banana treatment. So we live in a competitive world, okay? And the Caribbean people must think like that. And so because we live in a competitive world, we have to think strategically. And so the issue of strategy becomes important because the world that we live in is set up strategically. And the position that people occupy in the world today. And when we talk about the Black position, what is the Black position? The Black position is backwardness, lack of educational outcome. It is violence, mixed poverty and outcomes, and so on and so forth. That is the Black position, and it is created through strategy. And when it seems as if the Black or people of the former Black peoples or people of color are about to get ahead, what happened? They embark on a war. They give you embargo, like what they did with Cuba, the West Indies, Cuba, not necessarily Black people, I should say, subjugated people. They did with Cuba, embargo, and up to today they have an embargo on Cuba. It's not okay. It has not just to do with their economics, communism, because Cuba is not really a communist country in the way we see it. Okay. Because if Cuba have the opportunity to invest and to participate globally in the world, then Cuba's wealth and growth will be exponential and it will rival other countries, and that's a problem. And the same goes for Haiti. And those two countries. And you asked me the question, why is it? Okay, so we talk about when you study things, we study things in academics, we study things in patterns. That's what you study things, you study relationships and you look at things in patterns. That's what we do as academics. You study things in patterns. That's what we do. Why is it so you come to and be like, wow, why is it that those two countries are the poorest countries in the world? And you say, oh, wow, those two countries are the only two countries that had a revolution where they did not get their independence. They took it by force. All the other countries got theirs through ceremonies. And today until you ask, and it begs the question, okay, it seems as if there's a correlation between that and the other. There's a correlation between a country's socioeconomic position in the world today, in terms of their level of poverty and by abject poverty and degradation, and the way they get their independence. Now you can make an argument. Then you can come up and then you can argue that. You can have an argument because you were looking at two relationships here. The relationship between one, what is the relationship? The correlational, so the relationship of the argument of the point is this. One, the relationship between factor one, two variables. One, poverty and abject poverty, and two, the type of independence. And then, of course, what are we pointing to? Haiti and Cuba. And then you argue, where else do you find that? And you build an argument from that. No, I've never written a paper on this. This is a new correlation of issue that we are discovering. That is something that's what we do in Caribbean thinking, that you do in critical thinking. That is something that you want to push it to its logical end. Where you will end up, we don't know. You may come to a conclusion that is inconclusive, but that when you write and when you study, that's how you develop historical studies and philosophical ideologies and thoughts. You look at the relationship between stuff and the values of it. Where does it go? We don't know. But that is the notice. That is what you take from that. Now, today, Haiti does not have a prime minister that is elected by the people. They have not had an election since 2017. And they have a prime minister who heads the PHTK, who is in Jamaica right now. And I'm very upset that he's in Jamaica because it is as if we are rubber stamping and confirming his legitimacy when he is an illegitimate despot. They have not had an election. The Haitians are calling for an election. Can you imagine? This is hypocrisy. These people, let me tell you, we are all fighting for independence. We are all fighting for nationalism. When we talk about nationalism is about what? The ability to self-determine. How would Jamaicans feel if Andrew Holness decided that he would be prime minister for life and there was no more election? What would happen? There would the same kind of gang violence that we had the other day in Haiti. We would have it again, probably, because you know what? They will be, because you have the PNP people will not stand for it, and they'll be fine. And then of course, if and then this will happen. If the American government like him, and if Andrew Holness is easy, it's like a lapdog of Americans, and it's easily swayed, and he promotes American policies, then they will protect him, and they send an international peacekeeping force in Jamaica to protect him and to keep him. And then while on the ground, people are calling for him to go and calling for an election, and he's not going and he's not calling an election. So then Jamaica is no longer democracy. It's a dictatorship. Yes? That is what is happening in Haiti today. That is what is happening in Haiti. Haiti doesn't have a democrat. Haiti, they fought for their democratic right. They fought for democracy and freedom. For what? Okay, we talk about, when you watch C.L.R. James said that, he said that the revolution, although Fidel Castro and the Cubans aren't black, the attitude of their revolution is essentially a West Indian revolution. Although the Haitians are not Jamaicans. The attitude of their revolution is essentially a West Indian revolution. Similar to Toussaint's revolution in 1802, 1804. Sailor said was talking about Fidel, because Fidel Castro and the Cubans, they were fighting for freedom, fighting against the Europeans, fighting against the Americans who was trying to penetrate. We never had to go through that because Jamaica was already penetrated by the British. We never got independence until 1962. So the petition that we have is talking about to restore democracy, to restore the independence that they so gallantly fought for in 1804. They don't have that because they have somebody who is in power, who is holding on to power and don't want to go, and doesn't want to go, and the international regime is fighting, and they're asking for people, and they're calling for the CARICOM, because Caribbean people, we are part of a Caribbean community. We are one. We are part of a Caribbean community we are part of the Good Samaritan spirit. We have a Christian theology of brotherhood and sisterhood, who share in the fight for nationalism and independence. And I ask you, what is the church doing in Jamaica today? The church is not doing anything. I asked, and I will ask you today, how many of you have went onto the petition to read it, to even read the petition today? To just read it, to find, this is a serious issue. And we're here talking about Caribbean thought. And Caribbean thought talks about diverse content, but it looks at the fight for justice and equality, and it traces discrimination and the history of violence that Black and brown people and people of color have to endure in order to secure their freedom and independence. And how we had to do it together as one. And in the 1940s and 50s, we were all doing it together. C.L.R. James and Padmore and Walter Rodney, we were all seen as, and that's why C.L.R. James, my brother. We don't have that anymore in the Caribbean. And I said, the disunity, well, okay. But we are asking for the CARICOM. CARICOM is also part of the decision making in Haiti. And we are asking for CARICOM and the CARICOM leaders, and for Jamaicans, Trinidadians, Barbadians, Jamaicans to sign a petition and lobby their government, asking the Caribbean community to ensure that the restoration of democracy is restored in Haiti today. The restoration of democracy, because they don't have the democracy today. Yes.
Sir, I'm listening to your strength as it relates to the Caribbean. And you speak so strongly of the disunity that is here, and we need to come together in order to restore democracy and whatever in different parts of the Caribbean. But you know something, you don't live here, but it is something that needs to start at every grassroots level in order to go to the Caribbean, because there is that level of disunity in Jamaica. As you speak, you raise a question. You say, what is the church doing? Sometimes the church isn't even doing anything for the local communities. There's so much that needs to be addressed in Jamaica. And I respect the fact that the course is Caribbean thought, and yes, we must focus on the Caribbean. But we cannot do for the Caribbean what needs to be done unless we start doing it for our own people. We need Jamaica.
What does that mean?
Because some of the very things that we need to lobby for in different parts of the Caribbean, we are lacking it in Jamaica. Jamaica needs to be a unified force that fights for different things here that makes us a wholesome country, really. We're
So
not.
you're saying, okay, let me ask you. So you're saying that in every country there are problems. In every country, there's problem everywhere. So if every country take that view, there's no change. We talk about in order for there to be change. We said no man is an island, no man stands alone. When we talk about in order for there to be change, we talk about the global justice movement. We talk about the law of multiplicity, the law of numbers. It's not Jamaican plight won't change by just the Jamaicans coming together. But sometimes we need international support because the problem goes beyond Jamaica. Say, for example, the problem of Haiti goes beyond Haitians coming together alone. The problem of Haiti is not just Haiti. The problem of Haiti is everywhere else because the people in Haiti have Jamaica, the Jamaican government. We have a Caribbean community. We have a Caribbean community that make decisions. It's you know what? Because people don't know what's going on in the world today. People think that the world operates in a vacuum. And that is why people get, because they're more, and that is what, by the way, that's what happened in Jamaica some time ago. Or people are always insulating it. And I think that's a hypocritical position because it's easy for Jamaicans to say, well, we have our own problem, we should come together. But when Jamaica have problems, they want other people to come help us. I don't feel people have, that's the same argument that Americans have about about immigrants. If everybody have that mentality and that argument, nobody helps anyone. And guess what? Discrimination and the strategy of discrimination will continue. In other words, it is the division is a strategy. People who are in power want people to be, that is always the strategy of power. When you study social movements, and I have a book here, Poor People Movement. Poor People Movement. Why they succeed and how they fail, written by Francis Fox Piven and Richard A. Cloward. And he talks about that. The ability from people to come together, not just within the local, but within the global. That's when you find the greatest. Say, for example, what's going on in Sudan. They were asking for international support. Yes, what's going on in Ukraine? Why is it that Ukraine is able to stand up today, is still able to be in the fight today? Yes, they were fighting, but if they never got the kind of help that they got, they would have been destroyed today. As much as every country have their own problems, we still have a responsibility because that is what the Bible teaches. And we said we are a Christian country and we talk about sacrifice and we see Jesus on the cross dying, giving up in order to help another man, in order to help another woman. What does it take? Sacrifice. That is Caribbean for you. That is Christian theology for you, which is part of Caribbean theology, Caribbean talk and Caribbean thinking. The issue of sacrifice, going outside of yourself, going beyond your needs to help, okay? That is what Jesus Christ gave up his divinity, gave up his people, because even the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the Jews didn't even, they said, oh, he's Jews? I thought he was with the Gentiles. Yes? So we have a responsibility to help other people because that's what we are about. We talk about love and altruism and so on. Do we cherry pick those words and those attitudes when we want to? No, we do not. We are part of the Caribbean community. And if we are ever going to make change, we cannot begin to be insulated. We have to think about ourselves, but we have to think about others. And there is power in numbers. And part of the problem, and by the way, when you understand the political situation going on in Haiti, is not the problem. The OAS, Organization of American States, and the Caribbean community. And by the way, do you know who leads the OAS? Or one of the Caribbean community, Jamaica? We head up we make some of the decisions about Haiti. We are asking, no, we're not asking for Jamaicans to get involved in Haiti, to sign a petition. We are asking for Jamaicans to support the petition for a Haitian-led solution. In other words, Haitians want to resolve the problem themselves. They want to have an election and elect a new governance. But there is interference from outside. And they want CARICOM. CARICOM was part of a group in 1994 when they had Jean-Bertrand Aristide, and when he was Haiti demonstrated they could be a democratic nation, and they had an election and everything was going good. But you know what the problem is? Jean-Bertrand Aristide put a lawsuit together against the French, suing them to recoup the billions of dollars that they had paid them. A legal lawsuit, and guess what? The claim was justified in a sense, because even recently, the former, the Prime Minister of France said that Haiti really has a legal claim, but they abducted him. You know why? Because they saw that claim. That claim was because they realized what Jean-Bertrand Aristide was doing. This guy trying to recoup money that they had paid illegally to France to get their independence, and they abducted this guy. Haiti had been penetrated. But you see, we are part of the Caribbean community. And in the 1950s, you know what has dogged the Caribbean? Our size, our smallness. We're small. We're little, but we're tall about our size. But I said to you in the last class, and I know you guys didn't understand what I was talking about, narcissism in nationalism. We're narcissistic. We're selfish. Okay, that is why we never had the federation in the 1960s. We had independence. We had a local independence, which was not regional, but it was more national. Okay, you know why it wasn't regional? And we wanted a regional independence. The independence was supposed to be regional because we were small and we were small and going into the global world. Our size was very important. But guess what? People were narcissistic. The Caribbean and the fighters for justice. They wanted to go. They wanted they wanted to puff their chests. We are West Indian people from the same experience, and we just have separated by some water. Okay. But they wanted to go it alone and to have their own country and to run their own state of affairs. Okay. And to be president and to run show and not share it with the other countries or nation states. But we were one peoples. And when we talk about nationalism speak about grouping people. But then where do you stop? How far do you go in this group of nations? Again, CLR James says of Castro and the Cuba Revolution, although Fidel and the Cubans aren't Black, the attitude of their revolution is essentially a West Indian revolution, similar to Toussaint's revolution in 1802 to 1804 in Haiti. It was a West Indian revolution. And I said we will go beyond Blackness. Okay, we think about the Good Samaritan. The story of the Good Samaritan. I'm going to close the class in a few minutes by reading that. The story of the Good Samaritan. The major works. Now, what are some of CLR James's major works? The Black Jacobins, Toussaint Louverture, and the San Domingo Revolution, 1938, which examines the Haitian Revolution and its significance in the fight against slavery and colonization. That's one of his, and he also wrote another one. He wrote another book that says From Toussaint to Castro. Very good book. Okay, very good book. I'm wrapping up. That's it. That's it. That's it for today. I have that's it for that one. I'm not having any more class, but what time is it? It's 9:30. I'm going to wrap up class today. By the way, it's 51 slides. And I've gone through 5, but this particular, and I can't wait to get into the others. You guys are going to be thrilled about it. Let me start. I'm going to wrap up with one thing. But before I do that, I'm trying to find a document for you guys. Any questions so far, guys? Any questions? Now listen, table your questions. You guys have home. I sent you guys an email. Peruse the email and do the question and finish those reflections. But I'm gonna wrap up today by sharing one last thing, and that's it. Here we go. And I think I don't know if I shared this yesterday, but I'm going to end with this. By the way, I have all of this for you guys on a, let me see, on a paperwork. Are you guys seeing this paper, my screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We are seeing
what you see the Word document?
No, sir. We're seeing the neoliberal website, not a Word document.
Okay, sorry. Are you seeing it now?
No, sir. We're seeing the same thing that was there before, the neoliberal website. In the documents.
All right. Shaman. No, man. Where is the thing? Is that it? Are you seeing it now?
Yes, sir. Fine. We're seeing it now.
Okay, you see Caribbean Thought 2200 lecture presentation?
Yes, sir.
Good. So you have, this is the list of, I have a list of Caribbean thinkers and their influence: Arawaks to Africans, Descartes, Kant on history, The Social Origins of Democratic Socialism by Keith and Keith, Garveyism, George Padmore, again Trinidadian born Pan-Africanist, C.L.R. James. You guys are supposed to be doing a homework with C.L.R. James. V.S. Naipaul, I will go through him when we pick up the next class. Frantz Fanon is very important, very important. I'm going to say much about him. The Negro is not any more than the white man. Black-skinned white masks. That's what he says. And he also said, the colonial man is a political creature in the global sense of the word. The colonial man is a political creature in the global sense of the. What is he talking about? What does Frantz Fanon mean? In Wretched of the Earth. Homi Bhabha explores that, and this other guy in the Wretched of the Earth, who in Wretched of the Earth, Homi Bhabha and Jean-Paul Sartre and Richard Philcox. And oh my God, I did not include Jean-Paul Sartre in this. He's very important. He's actually an influence. He helped to influence. He influenced. And I don't see it here. Influences. What is this? Jean-Paul Sartre. It's not on here. What's this? This is. I don't understand. Timeline. Jean-Paul Sartre. I don't see that. This is ridiculous. Anyway, Jean-Paul Sartre, Richard Philcox talks about this, what he means, and Homi Bhabha. Sometimes when you don't understand what somebody say, but you can read widely, and you will find a major theorist that interprets what he says. But as I said to you, cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. Their interpretation may be an interpretation far beyond what he meant. It may just be based on a logic that comes from the mind that we have accepted. But we must remember that we give no credence to Newtonian physics, because history is what? A result of the varieties of human nature, and circumstance. Okay? Of course, there's also Walter Rodney in Guyana, very important. I think he was assassinated. Fidel Castro, very important figure. And one thing they have in common, when you look at Fidel, I'm going to send this document out to you. And not yet, but do the homework and other stuff first. This document you will get later on. But when you look at the document, I'm going to ask you, what do all of these people have in common? And why? What does Walter Rodney, Fidel Castro, Frantz Fanon, V.S. Naipaul, C.L.R. James, George Padmore, Marcus Garvey, what do they have in common? Michael Manley. And then I'm going to ask you, does Edward Seaga bear the same, does Edward Seaga have any commonality with any of those characters? Or I might say, true or false, I might say to you, which of these five does not belong in this group? But Edward Seaga is unique. But we won't get to him. Then there's Bob Marley, Kamal Brathwaite. Okay, and he was more from the oral traditions. Okay, he was very poetic, artistic. Edward Glissant, the Negritude movement. Stuart Hall, Omi Baba, Stephanie Black, Jamaica Kincaid, Garnet Roper, Rex Nettleford, Ronaldo McKenzie. Oh, there's lots about Ronaldo McKenzie. He's a new thinker, so therefore I have to talk a lot about him. Carl Stone, Ian Baruma, Mike Davis, Ramesh Ramsawan, Andre and Gunder Frank, Eli Kaduri, Kenneth Clark, Antonio Gramsci. I mentioned him about the prison notebooks and his idea on intellectualism. Samuel Faber, Howard J. Wiada, and Michael J. Carrisneck. Stokely Carmichael. And the thing about Stokely is that he grew up in Jamaica. Norman Gervin, Ramesh Ramsawan, come out, no, this is a repeat. Edith Clark, she wrote the book, My Mother Who Fathered Me. Sociologist. Alvin Thompson, E. Wickman, Spencer, I said Walter Rodney already, Paddison, Brian Meeks, Gordon Lewis, Kenneth Hall, Jane Gordon, Dick Devon, Edward Breathwaite, Nigel Boland. And that's it. That's some of we will go through this, some of these guys. I'm going to add Jean-Paul Sartre. He's not on there. That's remiss of me. Okay. And of course, there's some, I don't remember seeing Garnet Roper. Garnet Roper is supposed to be on here. If he's not on here, that's a problem. Let me see. Control F. Roper. Enter. Okay, he's on here. All right. So he's on there. So those are the people we go through. Now, I will end tonight by sharing. Are you seeing the neoliberal right now?
No, sir. Sir, before
Yes.
you end, remember we're going to put persons in groups.
Oh, yes. So I will end now, but let me end by saying this. Voices United, and I started this, but you guys never heard it. A petition for democracy in Haiti. I'm going to read this again. Once upon a time in the Caribbean and the diaspora, and I said, a group of passionate students and their professors in Caribbean thought class at Jamaica Theological Seminary came together to advocate for a cause close to their hearts, the restoration of democracy in Haiti. Inspired and challenged by the work of the Institute for Justice and Democracy in Haiti in raising awareness and fighting for justice and democracy in Haiti, a group of individuals felt compelled to take action. They recognized their duty as good Samaritans to their Haitian brothers and sisters and were motivated by the lack of social action among Caribbean peoples in support of Haiti's fight. With a deep sense of purpose, they embarked on a transformative journey to address these challenges head on. They believed in the power of unity and sought to gather support from the Caribbean community and its members, its member nations, to take a stand for their Haitian brothers and sisters. In their quest to bring about change, they decided to create a petition campaign titled CARICOM People and Their Diaspora Support the Restoration of Democracy in Haiti. The petition aimed to raise awareness about the deteriorating democratic situation in Haiti and call upon CARICOM to remove international support for the current de facto, notice I said de facto, because he was installed, he's not elected, de facto authorities. So with great enthusiasm, they carefully crafted the petition, capturing the essence of Haiti's struggle and its significance to the Caribbean region. They highlighted the systemic dismantling of Haiti's democracy, the control exerted by gangs, the rampant corruption draining public resources, and the alarming levels of hunger faced by millions of Haitians. The petitioners reminded their fellow Caribbean citizens of the shared history between Haiti and the rest of the region. Haiti's courageous fight for independence in 1804 paved the way for liberation movements in other nations, including Jamaica. They acknowledged Haiti as the first country to abolish slavery, a milestone that impacted the trajectory of freedom in the Caribbean. Now, understanding the challenges faced by Haiti, the petitioners stressed that international support for the de facto government was not only a betrayal of democratic values, but also a disservice to the Haitian people, who had sacrificed so much for freedom. They firmly believed that a legitimate Haitian-led solution was crucial to restoring democracy and paving the way for a better future. As they penned the petition, the petitioners recalled the remarkable role CARICOM had played in the past. They remembered how in 1994, Jamaica led a successful United Nations peacekeeping mission that restored Haiti's elected government. They celebrated Jamaica's unwavering support for President Jean-Bertrand Aristide in 2004, despite immense pressure from external forces. These acts of solidarity had proven instrumental in the restoration of democracy in Haiti. Filled with hope and determination, the petitioners turned to their fellow Caribbean citizens, like I turn to you now, urging them to add their voices to the cause. They understood that true change required the collective effort, and each signature on the petition was a symbol of unity and support for Haiti's democracy or democratic aspirations. They've reached out to communities, organizations, and individuals across the Caribbean, spreading the word about petition and urgent need for action. They spread stories of Haitians from all across and all walks of life, and journalists, security guards, doctors, so on and so forth, who longed for a future free from corruption and fear, where they could chart their own destiny. Their plea was simple. Join them in signing the petition to call upon CARICOM to refuse support for the illegal de facto government, propose the suspension of Haiti from CARICOM activities until fair elections were held, demand the implementation of democratic principles outlined in the Inter-American Democratic Charter. Sign the petition today, and let our collective voices resonate across the Caribbean, inspiring hope and change our Haitian brothers and sisters, and change for our Haitian brothers and sisters. Together we can make a difference and create a stronger Haiti, firmly rooted in the principles of democratic justice, democracy and justice. Sign the petition for a stronger Haiti. And that's it, guys. All right, and I invite you, please sign the petition if you can, or share it with your friends and develop conversations. Read it some more. We will, on Monday, on Monday, we will have a class that is geared towards talking about this some more and the petition, but we will more talk about it from a Caribbean perspective, delving into Caribbean thought, our history and perspective. And but before we do that, we will continue looking at the document with the thinkers. We will go through the thinkers carefully, and then we will go on to the next lecture. All right, but thank you guys. Now I'm going to end. I'm going to end, and I think remember you guys are supposed to put yourselves in groups of 4. One group is going to have 5 persons, and that will be the new person who just joined us, because we only have about 12 or 13 persons in the class. Okay, I think Chantel is working on that with you guys. I sent out some homework and a reflection for you guys to complete, and the deadlines as to when you guys should submit that. Please work on those. That's one of the ways I will mark your papers and determine what to put on the exam based on how you respond and how you answer the questions. Okay. All right. But thank you guys so much. I will end now.
Sir,
yes.
Good evening. Before you go, I'm new. I'd like to ask you a couple questions, because I've been speaking with Chantel and I've been keeping up with the course material that you have been sending, but there are still some disparities there for me regarding the requirements of the course. So if you don't mind, after you've wrapped up, I'd like to ask you a couple questions.
Okay, I will not answer those questions tonight. I will end tonight and I will spend some time. I will speak with you individually tomorrow. I will speak with you tomorrow one-on-one. I will call you. In fact, I will speak with each of you. Not tomorrow, but I will talk with you tomorrow. But I think, but generally speaking, there is a final exam component that you will do. So that's worth 40% of the grade. There is a research paper that is due at the end of the semester. And it's a question that you will do, and you will choose a question based on the outline that you have. So any outline, the questions that we have on the outline, the course outline have several questions all over the course outline. You can choose one, or this course is interdisciplinary. You can choose. You might have an essay question that from talking about the United Urban Heritage Society that is not on the course outline. You might see, I might be discussing a particular topic, say for example, the topic about CLR James recently, or the issue about the people we getting the issue I just mentioned with the uniqueness of Haiti and Cuba with respect to their independence being taken and not gotten, and their position and their position and the socioeconomic position that they find themselves in. That's not on the paper. That'd be something you could explore as a topic. But so you can choose what. So there are the two most important things you have. The 3 most important things for this course is to come to class. Yes, to do the exam, where most of the grades come from coming to class, doing the exam, and the research paper. Now there's a midterm paper. The midterm is just that you submit the course out. You submit an outline of the paper, of your paper. So submit submit a rough draft of your paper. A rough draft, that would be the midterm. The midterm is just submit a rough draft of your paper, because the paper is going to be about 10-15 pages. So you could submit the introduction, the preface, the introduction, and the reference list. Okay, the preface, a table of content, and a reference list, or an outline. So you have that leeway. You can a rough draft. So you give me a rough draft, but at least an introduction with an hypothesis or an assertion or a topic, and with sources or an outline of an outline with the topic, introduction, point 1, point 2, point 3, which includes historical body, including the variables you're going to compare, and conclusion will be the premise that you will conclude on. It'll be something that, and then at the end, some sources you will draw. That could be the midterm. I would mark that if you give me that. But you get to choose a particular page. You choose from one of the questions that I have, or on the outline, or choose or you may have an epiphany and something that speaks to Caribbean that you may want to do. You have that leeway. Okay, so you have that midterm to do. Now I ask you to do in-class interaction papers. Interaction papers are very important towards your learning. I have found that to be very instrumental. I did journals when I was at JTS for the journal class, but I think that is very instrumental. It's part of getting you get grades from that too. It also helps me to determine who comes to the class. It helps me to get a sense of how you write. Okay, it helps me determine your concepts and how you're grasping in the class, and your development, the way you argue. Okay, but it is also it's a way to help to develop your writing. And I think it's also worth about 10% of your grade, the interaction papers that you do. So like, I will ask you to do interaction paper. Now, I sent you an email today, and when I sent the email, I put due. Just because it's due doesn't necessarily mean it's being graded. Okay, so for example, I asked you to watch the film CLR James. I'm not grading that if you watch it. I don't know if you watch it. Okay, but I would love for you to watch it. But it's due. I put due because it's due because we're going to discuss important concepts surrounding CLR James. So I would love for you to watch the film by that time, so that by the time we get to the class, you have a sense of what we're talking about in the class. Okay, so I will tell you to read. So what I am asking you to read and to review is important to what we will discuss in the class. So again, and of course there is a group work component to the class too. So I think there is a group work component. There is a group work paper that is all outlined in the course. I think it's in the essay. But for now, what you are supposed to be doing is formulating, putting yourself in groups, because eventually I will be asking you to do some group interaction papers instead of individual interaction papers. Okay. So and doing some and group. We will switch into group work eventually, so that I can help to develop your group work, since we also want to develop that aspect of the course. Okay. All right. So that's about. But as I said, this week I'm supposed to be speaking with each of you, and I still still one of the things that I have on my plate to do. Okay. But today is my birthday, so and I was supposed to only spend at least an hour in class today, and I've been doing this. So, but we're going to end class now, and what I'll do is we can speak some more about this later on, outside of the class. Okay, so I'll follow up with you outside of the class. So we'll make an appointment later on this week to speak. Okay.
But sir, that's the thing. Thank you so much for extending your birthday time with us. But that last thing that you mentioned a while ago about the interaction paper is actually what I was having some difficulty understanding exactly what it is that you require for us to do, especially regarding sitting through this class and seeing the format that the class takes. I'm been a little bit in the dark on what you require of us in that interaction paper. Right. So that is what I would want some clarity on as well.
An interaction paper is really a journal. It's because you have. I do not want to give you guys a lot of work to do. The interaction paper is really a journal. It's like a blog post. It's a post where you interact with, you comment on you interact in an academic style. In an academic style, you interact on a question that I might ask you. Say, for example, interact with the film and interact with the question. CLR James said that Fidel Castro is of the Cubans, blah 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 blah. Well, you begin by, you don't have to write a cover page and stuff. It's a 1 to 2 page essay. That's it. I mean, a one page essay. You just write a 1 page essay, interacting with it. Talk about what are your feelings, what are your emotions, and what jumps to mind, what concepts jumps to mind. So an interaction paper. So an interaction paper is not a full paper. An interaction paper is really like a journal where you interact with the concepts raised or whatever concepts that you think that jumps out to you, that is important to you based on what comes out, and you based on its philosophy, its principles. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Does it making sense? What points jumps out to you? Why do you think so? Who else have commented on this that you want to use to debunk his point? That's it. Or you may use it from personal experiences. But the interaction paper are only worth 10%. Do not spend time writing elaborate interaction papers. They are really personal papers to develop your blog, your journaling and your writing, and to help with your reflecting and your meditating and of the course. That's what a reflection paper is, an interaction paper. Okay. So so you don't have to write, but I still need. So if you make a comment and you borrow from a book, you still want to document it using Turabian or APA style. Okay, that's important. You still want to reference whenever you borrow from someone. Interaction paper provide a lot of leeway because it's not an essay, end of term essay paper or a midterm paper. So an interaction paper, there are small papers, like it could be an interaction paper, could be an essay, part one of an, if you read a book and you have chapter one is the introduction. The first page, the first paragraph, or the first two paragraphs could be seen as an interaction paper. It's in other words, it's an interaction paper. That's what it is. Several interaction papers come together to formulate a chapter. Okay, so basically what I'm asking you to do is write a small, just write a blog or a post with using academic language to discuss the main points and the views that comes from the particular paper or from the particular writer or from the class discussions. Okay, so I might talk about democratic socialism and talk about Michael Manley, who was seen as a socialist. But many people, okay, but you might respond in your interaction paper, you might say, well, I want to interact on the topic. I want to interact on one of the concepts that Sir talked about in class today. Or my interaction of Michael Manley as it relates to him being a democratic socialist stems around the issue of him not necessarily being the best socialist. Because while he was a socialist, he never really practiced socialism. In fact, if you were to read Carl Stone from the University of the West Indies, he said he only utilized socialism as a way to garner support from the people to secure victory in the 1970s. This brings into question whether or, something of the sort. I mean, it's like you're writing a paper. It's the same, but it's just that you're not writing a long, it's a microwave paper. It's a summary. It's a short paper of your feelings and your reflections surrounding the particular issue. Okay? But the thing is, write the first paper, submit it. The thing is, when you write a paper, I always comment on it. I may not comment on it right away. I comment on it. I'm not very hard. I don't mark interaction papers hard. Okay? And I tell you what I want once you submit it. So just submit submit the paper that it's your first class, so that's fine. You may have missed the first one. What was the first essay that they were supposed to do? What was the first interaction paper that they were supposed to do? Chantel?
Sorry, the first paper was about the heritage. Some person did it and some person did not.
Right, some person did it and I'm still waiting on that. Okay, so they were supposed to do an interaction paper about your heritage, and I usually tell you clearly as to what I want, what I'm looking for. So I will tell you exactly what I want from the paper, from your interaction paper or your journal. Okay, it's really a journal or an interaction. So the second interaction paper, I sent an email as to what I would like for you guys to do on the paper. And it's a one-page paper. That's it. I don't want 2 pages, 1 page only, double space. And utilize a reference, because at this level, you're writing papers. I mean, interaction papers are okay, fine. You don't need it, but I want to see interaction with the thing. So interact with the material, but it's good to use other sources to interact. Okay, other sources. I'm going to tell you what source are you using to interact with the particular thing, or what milieu are you interacting from? Marxist, communists, or Pentecostal, apostolic, Christian. I mean, what milieu? You might want to bring that up in your, but you may not. It may not be valuable to what you're saying. Okay, but write your first interaction paper, and let me see what you have submitted. And usually I will respond. Some people submitted interaction paper, which I have not graded yet. I will get, I have seen the papers. I will get to them shortly. Those of us, some of you still haven't submitted the first interaction paper. Dane did an exceptional interaction paper, and a few other persons did exceptional papers. One, he submitted a genealogical paper and even had added pictures. Be creative as well, okay, with your interaction papers. There is no, I'm not strict with the interaction papers, so don't get bogged down about the interaction papers, okay? What you should be, okay, the most important thing is to come to class and to be ready for the exam, and that's where you get the most of the grade, and participate in the class. And demonstrate participation, demonstrate interaction and participation. That's very important to this class, okay? And but don't worry, this class you'll do well. Everybody does well in my class, okay? I will ensure that you do well. Okay, guys, thank you, guys. We will end here. I hope you guys have a great day. Take care. And we'll talk some more. I will send emails and interact. I'll send an email out later on. What good?